Good afternoon and welcome to the Questback webinar, Visualizing Employee Feedback with MySight. My name is Luke Talbot, Senior Product Manager here at Questback. And with me today is Daniel Boomer, Senior Pre-Sales Consultant at Questback.
Hey Luke, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
Awesome.
Fantastic. Okay, ready to share some cool technology?
Indeed I am.
Fantastic. Okay, well let's go. So today we're going to go through three things. The first thing is the evolution of Voice of the Employee with employee journeys. We're then going to move on to MySight, which is a new way of visualizing feedback. That's a technology we brought out this summer. We're really excited to show it to you, and can't wait for that part of the demo with Daniel. And then we're going to end with a little bit of a glimpse of the future. So I won't say any more about that now. We'll just leave that to the end. Okay. So the first thing to say, and this has never been more important than it is right now, is that voice of the employee is crucial. And what you've got on screen here is four statistics that you've probably seen before. I know here at Questback we use these quite a lot to iterate exactly how important voice of the employee is to our customers. And it begins with millennials wanting feedback approximately 4 times a week. Now it's important not to forget here that when we talk about millennials wanting feedback 4 times a week, we're not talking about literally wanting to be there giving feedback all the time, constantly telling you exactly how everything is. We've also got people who want to see how things are going. They want to see feedback, they want to visualize it, they want to understand what their customers think, what other employees think around them. And so with this millennial generation, it's not just the giving feedback that's important, it's actually the receiving feedback as well. And so with millennials, you have all of the different types of the digital generation. You have your digital voyeurs, you have your digitally engaged, and all the other groups around that. And so all of those are just as important as each other. We then move on to a very frequently quoted statistic, which is that only 13% of employees are engaged. And that just sounds ridiculously low. And if you think about those 13% of employees, if you think about every employee as a light in your organization, then in a 10-story building, that means that barely 1.5 floors are actually illuminated with the lights on. You've maybe got 5 floors with the lights flickering, people not fully engaged. And then you might even have 3 to 4 floors where the lights are just completely off and no one is paying attention at all. No one knows what's going on. And those are the disengaged people. And so when you think about it like that, suddenly you realize that it's not just that this is important for engagement, it's actually important for the entire organization as well. These people need to work together.
Sounds like a dark outlook, huh?
It's pretty much, it sounds quite grim actually when you put it like that. The next one is 80% of employee turnover is due to bad hiring decisions. And this one is shocking for 2 reasons. I mean, the first, it's a really, really high statistic. But the other one, it sounds completely avoidable. Right? If it's a bad hiring decision, then surely let's just stop making bad hiring decisions. And hopefully something we'll show you later on might help to achieve that. Finally, we've got 75% of organizations could do more to develop their leaders, their future leaders. And again, let's remember, we're not just talking about the existing leadership. We're not talking about trying to track their competencies and make sure that they improve and make our existing leaders better. We're talking about taking from the ground up the future generation of leaders. So maybe these new millennials entering the organization and trying to nurture those and make them become the next leaders in our organization as well. So it's not just the focus on that top layer of management who have already achieved that, it's everyone else as well.
So you might miss a trainee that could be the next exec of sales or marketing manager or something.
Absolutely, they're your top talent, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So with all of these statistics, we should never really forget that they're just numbers, right? These are just numbers and they don't really mean anything until we turn them into something or give some value to them. And so I'm just going to focus on one here, and that's the 13% of employees are engaged. And this is a story from one of our customers using our software. And they found that there was a correlation between the engaged employees and the amount of time that employees spent in wrap up on the phone. So if you imagine a contact center and all of the engaged employees are spending 35% less time after phone calls before moving to the next phone call. So these are phone calls with customers, maybe making calls to customers and receiving calls to customers. Now, if you do some simple mathematics on that, that's the equivalent of 1 free full-time employee for every 8 engaged staff.
That sounds too high. Can it be true?
It sounds too high, but this is what they found. And so you've immediately now got a price tag on an engaged employee. So it's quite interesting to see that engagement isn't simply a number that you're chasing within your organization. It actually has a massive impact on genuine productivity.
I mean, that sounds and looks like a massive ROI. I mean, that's like instantaneously.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so let's take all of those things and think about them in the context of how we actually collect feedback. So at the moment, most of the feedback we collect around employees, or companies collect around employees, centers around these big calendar-driven initiatives. So you've got this big annual engagement survey. Maybe it's twice a year, maybe even 4 times a year with a pulse. But actually, what we're starting to see a trend towards is more employee journeys, which is where we're looking at process and event-driven feedback that's really linked into the way your business works and operates. And when we talk about process and event-driven feedback, we mean that when a particular event happens or when an employee is going through a particular process, then systematically they're being asked to give feedback at those points. So it's no longer the big, okay, it's January the 1st, everyone complete the big employee survey, and then in 3 months we'll get the report. That's still just as important as it ever has been. It's still really important to get that really big picture and that helicopter view of the organization so that we can track engagement. But actually, there's a need for something much more detailed so that we can start to track these employees. And what we're looking for here is employee journeys. And when we start thinking about employee journeys, it's nice to actually look at the world of customer experience, where customer journey mapping is actually quite mature. And we can look at examples that we all know and see around us and see how that can have an impact on the customer experience. So I've got here on the screen a quote from certainly somebody that has made a massive impact in the world of consumer technology, and that's Steve Jobs. And he said, you've got to start with the customer experience and work back towards the technology. And that's really important for what Apple have achieved over the last 20 years. And what they've done is not just look at the technology and deployed it to us so that we've all got iPhones in our pockets. They've actually looked at the whole way that we engage with that technology and the way that we engage with their software. And they've looked at it from the customer experience point of view to try to improve that. And one really tangible example is the Apple Store. So thinking about the way that the customer is engaging with the software, in order to take full control of the customer journey, they had to release a store. And they had to be in control of the buying process, of the demo process. They had to be in control of the ongoing purchase process in the App Store. And so that's how they've looked at the customer journey, and they've improved it, and they've vastly improved it for all of their consumers by doing that. And this is the same kind of methodology that we would then take back into employee journey mapping. And employee journey mapping, or journey mapping in general, really has 4 key stages. The first stage is to identify what those journeys are. It's all pretty straightforward. You just identify the journeys that you have and what stages those journeys have. Then we need to understand them. We need to measure them and see actually how good are those journeys. We need to measure all of the different steps in that process. We can then take the information we've got, redesign and engage and change the way it works for our consumers, in this case our employees. And then the really important thing is sustaining that and making sure that this is a continuous loop. So we're not just talking about something where we go A to B, and then when we get to B, that's it, we did it. Apple didn't just, high-five each other and say, fantastic, we came up with the iPhone and we've revolutionized the way people consume music, and now we've got the Apple Store, and now let's all sit down and go to a beach somewhere. I mean, I'm sure someone did, but mostly they were looking at that employee journey, customer journey, as being a continuous cycle of improvement. And that's exactly what happens here as well. This is a continuous cycle of improvement so that you can improve this for the next people going through that journey. Okay, so what we've done here is we've just extracted a couple of very obvious employee journeys just to illustrate the point. And the first one you can see on screen here is a journey of employees joining an organization. And here you can see on the left-hand side, we're going from the very beginning. This is where we're identifying the vacancy and evaluating the need for that job posting in the company. We then develop the position and the position description. So we're looking at coming up with the job description. We publish the job opening, Then we interview people, we screen the applicants and develop a shortlist. We conduct the interviews, maybe we put them through some kind of assessment, maybe there's a formal test as part of this. We select the hire, we develop an offer and negotiate with them. We communicate the rejections, and then we agree on the next steps. Pretty straightforward. Most companies will go through a very similar process. And there are actually really obvious steps here where we can overlay feedback to really get some positive value in improving this journey for our employees, future employees. And the first step is the feedback to the application. So how easy was it to actually apply for the job? How easy to understand was the job description? Was the job posting even easy to find? All these sorts of things. So how was that process for the future employee or applicant? The next was the feedback to the interviews. Now we've all been there. We've all had job interviews, and these really can vary hugely. I mean, if you're working for a big consultancy firm, and you might be in front of a panel of 6 to 12 people, and they'll give you really a formal interview process followed by tests, and you'll really feel like you're going back to school. But if you sometimes interview for other companies and you'll arrive and you'll be sitting in front of somebody who is just printed off your CV and doesn't really know who you are and maybe doesn't have any questions prepared, and that's your first impression of that company. So actually the feedback to the interview process is really, really important, because you might have critical talent approaching you because they think you are a certain company, and then that opinion completely changes in the interview process.
Sounds like a very crucial step. I mean, that's where people would drop out, for example.
Absolutely.
Exit that process, and then there goes your talent.
Absolutely. And if you think about mapping this back to what we do with customer journeys, every single one of these touch points along this journey is a window into your organization for the employee. This is you advertising. In effect, this is your marketing, it's your advertising, it's your public image that's at stake every time you do it. So then we've got feedback to the offer. Now, a lot of effort goes into an offer, right? You've interviewed the guy, you went through all the steps previously, you've decided this is the guy you want, you've put an offer together, you're ready to negotiate, and if that doesn't work down, if it breaks down, maybe you haven't communicated with them effectively and they've simply moved on in between the time that you interviewed them and you got back to them, then that's all just been a load of wasted time and effort, and you have to start again from scratch. And then finally, the overall feedback to the process. Now, this is one journey, and because we thought we'd take two journeys, we've actually picked another one, which is a very obvious bookend here. We've got the first one, which is employees joining an organization, and the next one is them leaving an organization. And this is, again, a process that happens, all the time within organizations. It starts with the resignation or termination process, so somebody saying they want to leave. We then go through knowledge transfer. I've then introduced your process step. This process, and in fact all of these processes, will be unique to you and your organization. So there's never going to be a one-size-fits-all employee journey. But here, so we've got your process step. Then we've got the farewell, which is basically goodbye. You've got your laptop and your keys handed in, and you leave for the last time from the office. And then you've got this last step, which is often forgotten, which is the alumni win-back situation, which is keeping in touch with your critical talent, the people who've worked there a long time, you left on very good terms, and then seeing if you can get them back in the future if their situation changes and things are right for it and you want them back. So again, looking at where we can transpose feedback on this employee journey, the first step here is criticality of role and caliber of talent. So Dave's leaving, is that a problem, right? So maybe it's not. But maybe it is. Maybe Dave's been around for 15 years. He knows everything inside out. The stuff he does takes everyone else 3 times as long to do, simply because they have to look up how to do it. The next thing is exit reasons. So it's actually quite important to find out why people are leaving. Not so much from an individual point of view, but from an overall trend point of view. Is everyone leaving for the same reason? It's never going to be something as simple as there's no orange juice in the canteen, but it might be something that you can actually do something about. Well, I don't know.
Buy more orange juice, obviously.
Buy more orange. That would be a really simple one.
Yeah.
Then we have knowledge transfer. So Dave's leaving. He knows everything. Let's make sure we do the knowledge transfer correctly. And that's really, really important, because it's not just the fact that Dave's job doesn't get done. Everyone around him is going to suffer if that knowledge transfer isn't done effectively. And that is just going to make other people unhappy. So all of these things have knock-on effects. And finally, the employer comparison. If you have a good relationship with your alumni, then you can be in a great situation to do a win back for your critical talent, but also it gives you great competitor insight. You can find out if the grass is actually greener on the other side, and try to sort of just understand a little bit about the landscape around you. You've got employees who are going out, possibly going to work with competitors, and they could give you valuable insights into what's actually going on. So those are just two very, very simple journeys that we've looked at here. And just by looking at them, you can see how important employee journeys might be. But this does start to expose a little bit of an issue in the world of insights and reporting. Because actually, this is just two journeys. And I'm sure off the top of your head right now, you could think of maybe 6 more. And then by the end of the day, you might think of another dozen. And then if you actually got everybody together in a room and started mapping these out in your organization with all the different teams and departments, you might have 50 different employee journeys that you could think of within an organization. And every single one of these might have lots of different points at which you could collect feedback and get really valuable insight on how to improve things. And what are we going to do with all of that data? We've got this explosion of data in an organization where we're not just talking about the big annual engagement survey, we're talking about lots of data coming in quite constantly. And this is pretty much why we developed MySight. So what we need something that can take us from the outsides of this big data explosion, from the real peripheral to here, where we can see this sort of helicopter view where it's all a bit crazy and there's loads and loads of noise, and where we can sort of start to focus in and we can go to the center of this cloud and actually see, you know, this light at the center, this insight. And that's really the essence of MySight. Paper reports really aren't going to deal with this, right? Because you've got your big annual survey. Yes, your big annual survey is going to be, probably a managed report that goes out to all of the people who need to see that report. But we're talking about feedback that needs to come in all the time. And if that simply gets printed off or distributed or put on people's desks, then it's as good as useless as soon as it's created.
Going back to what you said earlier, I mean, those millennials, for example, they want constant feedback. They want to consume it. Now think about that desk in front of us. You have your annual surveys here, you have your pulse surveys there, and then you have all those piles of different processes for whatever things you might want to look at. And then it's not only variety, it's volume. Because it's not just, hey, let's have a report per quarter or something. It's like, I want it daily, I want it twice a day. And then this paper racks up on your desk. You suddenly can't see data in front of you. It's just like paper all the way. So
yeah, it's actually really, really important that we bring this data to the people who are going to consume it. Because that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to make these employee journeys very, very visible so you can get insight and actually do something about it. We really want all of the managers to be able to make data-driven decisions every day. And this is where our second quote of the day comes from, and this is from Wayne Dyer. And he said that if you change the way you look at things, then the things you look at change. And that's very, very true of what we're about to show you. So we developed MySight, which is a new dashboard technology. And I'm going to pass over to Daniel, who's going to show a quick demonstration of a couple of dashboards and that we've just gone through the employee journeys for. So Daniel.
My pleasure. Actually, Luke, what I liked about the slides you just showed, the visual journey. Seeing how the process actually develops, seeing each and every touch point that might be of interest for feedback or might be opportunity to get feedback. Thinking of reports, I don't see that there. I don't see the possibility to slice and dice data. That's, I think, what people are missing, not just the millennials, not just the managers, but think about the complete organization. Each and anyone that wants to see how feedback might be applied to his or her job needs a tool like MySight. So, and that's what I would like to showcase right now. Basically, we took those two processes and others too, by the way. So as you said, it's not just the recruitment on the one side and the exit on the other. There are various processes in the middle. Onboarding, for example, training. What about, for example, different initiatives like a sales pulse? If you look at your sales reps and sales data, lots of opportunities. Not to speak of your look in the future later on.
Yes, absolutely. Look forward to that.
So if we look at the dashboard right now here, that's for the recruiting process. That graphic, I think, looks familiar.
Yeah.
Good thing.
Yeah, it certainly does.
It's not just a graphic. It's our process. And it visualizes data. It visualizes feedback data. I can look at that process and see, oh, interesting, feedback to application. So I can dive right in. I click on it and I get taken to a more detailed dashboard. This dashboard, for example, shows me various things. It shows me feedback over different stages, and obviously also I can filter down. For example, on the right side, I can say, hey, what's the feedback on people applying for a job in administration? I want to know, hey, just click on it. The data will change. You will get a live update of your data of the dashboard. Try that with paper. It's like a lot of going through paper, finding the right pie chart. Well, not here. Just one click and there goes the data. We can even go in more detail. For example, you cited the interview process. There's lots of opportunity for feedback. What's the applicant seeing, but even also what is the interviewer saying about that specific candidate. So we can dive in there. I can click and my data filters down. So now I can see it over time. So this line basically shows me how was my feedback in Q1, and it skyrocketed basically in Q2. But then again, was going down in Q3. So what was happening there? Something changed along the way. I have to look into what changed here. And more importantly, this dashboard shows me where do we have actual problems. It shows me, for example, that applicants actually thought, hey, was not enabled to prepare well. That's one feedback. That is like very visible here. Or the timely feedback they did not receive. So now think about that one talent that you want to get, and you get that kind of feedback. So you look at it and you think, oh, we have to change something. And you can do that while in the process, because basically that's the feedback. It might just went in this morning, for example, and now you can do something about it. It's actionable insights that go from a dashboard to your daily processes, so you can change things. And you can go even deeper if you want to do it on a level of a question, for example. See how is that progressing. Again, insights that you can use. So that's one very interesting example of how dashboard technology can help you slice and dice data and look at it in a different way.
And here we're really looking at, when we see this big confusing data explosion that we saw on one of the previous slides, we're really looking at being on the outside of that, where we see everything as a sort of aggregated, very confusing maybe. We don't have the exact data, and we're really zoning in on the center of that explosion. We're very, very quickly getting to something that we think might be interesting to look at. So you can see your outliers here, they're color-coded, so you can see which ones are important, and you can get very, very quickly to something where you might be able to action it and make a data-driven sort of decision, which could have a positive impact on the process for the next people to go through it. So.
I think the number one problem there is for people, what am I looking at and how to look at it differently. They don't know the access points. They don't know what could be a valuable filter. Look at it, for example, from a higher perspective, or people that exited, for example. So again, that is very crucial. What have people actually experienced when they voluntarily exit the process? I think that's where your big opportunity lies. People exiting that might be talent that was lost. So just an example on the on this process. There are different ones, of course. We have prepared one more, and that's the other end of the spectrum, the exit, or hopefully the start to the win back, so to speak. Same thing here. We are taking a dashboard user on a visual journey. It should be easy to use. It should be actually very instant that you understand, okay, that's the process. How can I dive into the process? How can I dive into the data? By following the process. And going back to what you said earlier, it is actually, you're looking for the hidden champion. You're looking for the Daves. That guy, been there 10 years, the hidden champion, no one actually knew what he was doing, how much he was doing, and then he's gone. So what now? How critical was that to the company? And that's something that you can visualize by looking at feedback. If we go in that part of the dashboard, then we quickly see same technology. So that's not rocket science, it's technology that's available today. That's good. And we can shape it in a way that your process requires it. So these dashboards can be tailor-made to your needs. And what is really interesting about this one here is, if you think about exit, then you want to know, why did they leave? What are the main reasons? And are those reasons changing when I'm looking at different areas of the organization, obviously? And the other thing is, you want to make sure that people leaving, that they try to transfer their knowledge, that they got a feeling, hey, I left, but I left it in good shape. It's not like, whoa, I left in the middle of the night, but I went through a process, I involved people, and I tried my best to get them going and carry on what I did. So that's what this dashboard is about. The very powerful part is this here in the top left. There we see basically all those dots represent employees that left. And the far we get in the right corner up there, the more critical was the role, and the more critical, or let's say the more the caliber of the talent, the bigger was the talent actually we're looking at.
So this is Dave in the top right hand
That could
corner.
be, that blob here could be Dave. And the Daves of the world, actually they left because the meaningful progress was not visible to them.
Yeah.
Why am I here? Where am I going? Also the direction of the company. So you can immediately spot what those high performers and those very critical employees actually were thinking when they said, okay, that's it, I want to leave. It could be anything, but now you can say, okay, the Daves of the world left because of meaningful progress, and obviously the direction of the company is not what they would envision for them. So that's one way of looking at it. That's the overall thing. But if we go to administration, for example, again, great use of filters. Clicking on the organization changes everything, because now the Daves in administration, for example, they have different problems.
Yeah.
They said, hey, I want better opportunities. I want a better compensation package. It's not as easy, and there are KPIs for administration, I'm sure, but it's not as easy as if you're sales or marketing. There are clear KPIs, and you get cool incentives and packages and cars and whatnot. Yeah?
And it would be really easy looking from the outside at this helicopter view to just assume, oh, everyone's leaving because of meaningful work.
Oh.
But actually, the people in the engine room, the people in administration sort of doing all the paperwork in the background, those people are leaving because they have a better opportunity, and they're leaving for more financial reasons necessarily than the people who are at the front line in the go-to-market side. So actually we see different motivations just by running everyone through this same employee journey. Absolutely. We're starting to pick up on different things that we could action.
And the more you dive into data, it becomes obvious that if you apply more filters, for example, now we are looking at all people leaving administration. Why not even go further? Why not say, hey, what is the difference between people that have been here for a year or two versus people that have been 4 or 5 or even 10 years there? Is there a difference? So that is, I mean, you have lots of data points in that it can use. And I think the power lies in the easiness of use. And there are different aspects that you can actually, again, take out of it and apply it. For example, if I look at the bottom left here, it's interesting about knowledge transfer, because that's what you would be worried the most. Because, okay, that person, Dave, has left. I mean, right now, the win-back might start at that point. But again, we are talking about the now. And obviously, that Dave might feel that he has not introduced his successor to all those key contacts that he had. The secret keys and handshakes, those things that you learned over 10 to 15 years. Yeah. If he felt in a way like, oh yeah, I left, but I had no opportunity to hand it over, basically, that's a problem for the organization. So again, very powerful visualization. You can dive in, you can slice and dice. That's what I like the most. It looks cool, it's easy to use, and it's powerful. So that's MySight. And those are great examples. I think we can even showcase more, but time is limiting here.
we could do more. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. Thanks, Daniel. I have to say I still don't know the secret keys and handshakes here at Questback, so maybe that's what I need to find out. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to have a quick look to the future. So I mentioned right at the very beginning, we were going to have a look at the future. Here's my third quote of the webinar. I can't think of a more appropriate quote. Yes, it's a fictional character, but obviously, for those of you who like Back to the Future, it is fast approaching Back to the Future Day. So there you go. That timestamps this webinar quite well. So basically, there's something more that we need to do. This is a great start, but actually, we need to do more than this, because we've got this concept of a magic triangle. We've collected this employee voice, and we've got these employee journeys, but we also have these customer journeys and this customer voice. And actually, what would be really interesting to find out, and this is something that we get asked all the time, is what is the relationship between this customer voice and this employee voice? How can I actually start to track that and find these correlations and then do something about it? Because we've got to remember, actually, these employee journeys, for people who are very customer facing, there's a very direct link to how the customers feel and how the customers might react as well. I mean, if you're in a store, for instance, retail example is a very obvious one, but also we've got salespeople out there with customers every single day, and we've got projects. So what about our project work, where we've got teams of professional service and project managers who are out there with customers actually implementing projects? And there are lots of obviously companies doing this kind of work. And so the link there between your customer voice and customer experience and journey and the employee voice and employee experience and journey is really, really key. So it'd be beautiful to be able to expose that. And then this third part of the triangle, really the top apex of it, which is the financial KPIs. Because both of these things are great, but actually how do they translate to actual business value? So what is the value of that relationship? And when we've got a negative employee experience and a negative customer experience, does that actually relate to a negative financial experience for us as a company? Is there some kind of correlation there? And so what we want to do is we want to complete this triangle. And it looks really obvious when you just do a slide. It takes 5 minutes. But it's a little bit more complicated when you're actually doing this in real life. Because at the moment, these reports and all of this data go to different people, as you saw on the previous slide. So yeah, Daniel, if we'll go back to you for our final example of the webinar.
Actually, now I'm thinking, when do I get my hoverboard? Is it that time, right?
It's about time, yeah.
Speaking of the future, again, a glimpse into the future. I love that visual, that magic triangle. It really speaks to what we're trying to accomplish, and what we had in mind actually when we designed MySight is how easy can we make it to that user to experience all those data together. And that's, I think, what this dashboard interestingly showcases. Because basically on the top left, we have the employee satisfaction. So that could be your pulse, that could be data from continuous feedback, for example. Millennials want to get feedback, want to give feedback. So why not capture that ongoing? And on the right side, we have the customer satisfaction. Again, different channels. When do I let them give me feedback? Could be a service incidents, could be the annual survey for customer sat, could be everything. And in the middle, now comes in the third part of your triangle, the KPIs. How profitable
How profitable,
thank you, is my project. Good that you're the Brit, huh?
Yeah.
I'm just a German. So that KPI is very important there. And now we can look at that. How does it can be put together actually? And we try to capture that in one dashboard, saying, okay, let's look at projects. Again, it's very important what the employee feels, what the customer feels, and how your KPIs look. So let's look at that. Let's look, for example, at Twinder. So Twinder is a project, and if I zoom in again, we can see the dashboard changes. We get a different view on a map, which is a nice visual. Again, the color represents something. You can see here in the top left that we have mostly detractors and passive. So that is not good news for the project, actually. And if we look at the employee satisfaction, for example, it's going down. There was a small spike in Q2 in 2015, but now we are basically on the highway to hell. It's going down. That's a problem. Also, the KPIs, the financial KPIs look bad.
They look pretty terrible.
They look good at one point, and then went straight down. We got a small rebound. See, that's what I like about these visuals. You can really see it on a very granular level. How does it develop? How does it work? The customer satisfaction, interestingly, it's going up. Might be the last hope in the project.
And I mean, if we start to actually look at the data, I'm not really surprised that the customer experience has gone up. What we're looking at with profitability in this example, we're looking at projects. So actually, we're getting less money for the work that we're doing. So our billable hours are not representing the amount of work we're doing. True. And so here you can really obviously see that when the company has actually acted and started to try to turn things around, customer satisfaction has started to increase and pick up a little bit. And now what would be really interesting actually is to go into the different dimensions. So we could look at the progress of meaningful work. So is this meaningful work for the people who are completing it? And we can see the difference between that, for instance, and the enjoyable work and the loyalty to the company as well. You know, so how loyal is the company we're dealing with and the employees to us? It's
right to my fingertips. I can change from meaningful work to the loyalty to us as a company, and you can see how that changes. The customer satisfaction changes instantly, and it's interesting to see and get your insights. As you said, there is a good reason why this is spiking with the customer sat, because you realize, hey, I got I don't know, yeah, got good insights into the projects. Now I see they will deliver with no extra cost. So that's awesome. So again, it's easy. You can browse through this data. You can look at different other projects. It's awesome.
Yeah,
I like it.
None of the let's look at a project that's actually going well, because it's quite depressing. The financials are looking terrible for this company. So so let's look at one of the ones that maybe is doing better than that. And the other thing that's quite cool here is obviously you're looking at all of the different states here, and we're filtering by project, and the projects relate to the states. This is a unique dashboard for the use case that we're showing, but for your business and your example, this would be very different as well. So you would be able to maybe show this by project rather than by state, etc., etc. So let's look at the rest of the data. What else can we see?
Well, going back to the overview, obviously you can even go deeper into different parts of this dashboard. As we have seen before, there might be other slides, or let's say dashboards, as part of this complete dashboard that gives you other insight. For example, this has a focus on visualizing how your project actually tracks. And what I think is very powerful here is on the bottom, the team performance. So this big blob here, the bigger the blob, that more is the value of the project, obviously. So what you want to have is big blobs in the right-hand corner there. What you don't want to see is that block here. So Twinder, again, it's Twinder. Who comes up with those names?
I don't know, but it's got to be made, that company, Twinder.
Hopefully. So Twinder is down there, so that's horrible. And if you click on Twinder, again, you can see how the data is changing. And from the look of it, the team self-assessment looks good. But what about if we change? Again, beautiful. I can simply switch here. How does it change? And we can see once I move the slider, then the data is changing. Stuff is pointing out as positive or negative. So it's constantly changing when you actually change filters and everything.
And what you can see here is actually, as you changed all of the dates, all of the other projects went up. So you could see that on the bottom. All of our other projects are now going up. And this one big project for this poor company called Twinder, which is probably the most valuable project the entire company has, is still tracking really, really low, bottom left quadrant. Yeah. We really need to devote some attention to that. And that really is just the point of MySight. We're trying to dig through all of this mess, all of this data, just to try to expose those sorts of things that actually, until now, you only had opinions about. Now you've got data about it. So now you can make data-driven decisions. You know what? We really need to fix the Twinder project. Okay.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So you know what? If there's a company out there watching this called Twinder, please get in touch. So anyway, so that's MySight dashboards, your data, your way. So we're really proud of this technology that we've showcased to you today. We think it's really crucial for actually this voice of the employee evolution that we're going through at the moment. Because it is genuinely one of the only ways that you're going to start to expose these insights in any kind of meaningful and actionable way, now that you're starting to do employee journeys and giving some importance to the increase of feedback in your organization. Okay, so we're just going to go to some questions, because I think we have some questions from the audience. So our first question. So Daniel, you want to...
So how easy is it to connect all this data? You're talking about the triangle, and I was thinking like, okay, I can see the financial KPIs, I can see the employee data, I can see my customer stats. So how easy is it actually to combine those? I mean, that sounds difficult, and getting all those silos together, breaking the silos up, how do you do it?
So it's actually really easy, simply because that's exactly what MySight was designed to do. So when we first set out to create a new visualization tool for Questback, we actually realized we didn't just want a new way of visualizing project X or project Y. That's really the old way of doing things. It's that kind of single touch point, big calendar driven projects. And now that we've got all of these initiatives, we actually need a different type of technology that can take all of this data from different feeds. And we need to be able to take external data, these feedback KPIs from these financial KPIs, so the third part of the triangle as well. And so MySight's always been designed with that in mind. So it's actually exactly what it was designed to do. So it's very straightforward, and once the data's in there, it's as easy as Daniel's just shown you to navigate through it.
Wow, sounds awesome, cool. So Was that just like the hoverboard, or is it actually available? I mean, I want my hoverboard, but is it there? Can you sell it? Can our customers out there and the prospects can they get their hands on this?
Okay, so have we just shown you a hoverboard? Well, we have just shown you a hoverboard, but the great thing is you can buy the hoverboard, yeah? So it's not like in Back to the Future where it's 2015 and we still don't have one. So no, this is absolutely software which we have right now. We're deploying this at customers already, and we're already getting some pretty exciting feedback on this. So everything you've just seen today is stuff that you can actually sell. You can actually buy, sorry. And the really interesting thing, the two examples, the employee journey and for employees joining an organization and leaving an organization, those are simply use cases that we've put together, but you can already see how quickly you could take exactly what we've shown you and apply that to your organization.
How can MySight support the mobile workers?
Yeah, and it's not just the millennials. I mean, I'm a millennial by a couple of months, so obviously I'm always on Facebook. But actually, we see a massive surge in the use of mobile devices. We see it in our data, just with the amount of data that we collect, and also the industry sees it as well. That actually an increasing number of people, it's got to be approaching something like 50% now, approach the mobile device as their first device when trying to go online or get content online. And so actually the mobile device is the most important device. What you've seen here are desktop dashboards. These are things where you'd be sitting down, you'd be looking, you might be on an iPad, for instance, that would work just as well. So everything you've seen worked perfectly on an iPad. When you get down to a mobile device that you've just picked out of your pocket and you're looking at your tiny little phone screen, then all of a sudden the amount of data that you can consume on that is going to be very different. Sure, I could see this dashboard on my phone, that would work. But actually, I need something different. The use case for me walking around is going to be a different one. So the technology will pick up what device you're using, and it will automatically display the right dashboard for the right device. And so when I'm on the move, I'm in the tube and I'm about to get to work, I'm looking at a slightly different dashboard, which is maybe showing me my hot alerts and the things I need to do something about.
Wow, that sounds powerful, actually. So, being German, there's one question I'm facing all the time. Actually, dashboards for the consumer journey, I can totally see that. But now I'm looking at, for example, onboarding examples on the exit, on training, stuff like that. And I want to get my hands on this dashboard technology for employee projects. Is that possible? I mean, we're talking about people data there, and can you do that too?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a time and a place for knowing exactly who gave what feedback, and there are different mechanisms of feedback for that. And what we do see a trend in less anonymous feedback being provided. So people are doing more and more initiatives where they're quite happy for them to know that it was them saying it. We've got this generation now who are used to Twitter and Facebook, and those are probably me sounding old because I'm saying Twitter and Facebook. They're probably all on, I don't know, Tumblr or something. But anyway, they're used to saying all of this in quite an anonymous way. And those types of feedback, absolutely you can see them. But the dashboards you've actually seen today are looking at a bigger picture, right? We're looking at these overall trends. In fact, the whole point of customer journeys and employee journeys isn't that you zone in on the individual, it's that you look at the trend. You can't change the experience for the guy who's just gone through it, but you can make it better for the next guy. Now, we absolutely support anonymity with this. And having the software developed and hosted in Germany is really, really important to us. So we have very, very high capability for adhering to probably the strictest anonymity that you can imagine. So absolutely, but it can go both ways, so we can fit both sides of that scale.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I do believe that data privacy and protection is really at the core of our beliefs, so it's good that we also put that in MySight.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's completely in our DNA, yeah.
Super.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, that I think concludes the questions and concludes the webinar. So thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. So thank you from me and Daniel.
Thanks also from me, and get in touch, get your hands on some cool dashboards.
We look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.